So today is the companion planting. And if you haven't done this before, this is something that might be, it's kind of, it can be, gardening in general can be challenging because you have the weather changes, you have weeds, you have a lot of pests, and you're trying to help your garden in any way possible. So if you can do companion planting and not have to use as many chemicals necessarily, then you know, try everything you can do to help your garden out. Sometimes there are insecticides that you need to spray, but sometimes those insecticides kill the bad bugs, but they also kill the good bugs too. So that's why we kind of wanted to look at companion planting. So this is a little bit about what is companion planting. So we're just talking about the best way that you can try to grow your plants and try to make them be good, strong vegetables or herbs, and try to add beauty to your garden as well. So with that, sometimes when you do companion planting, you can have more resistance to certain insects. So it kind of helps repel insects. You can also have where it can help resistance to disease or make it where it's less likely. And then it can improve the soil health and really help the growth. So it's not a miracle thing. It's not going to be, oh my goodness, companion planting is going to take care of everything, but it can help with some of the issues. And we're just trying to get the best garden that we can get. So with that, why practice this companion planting, right? Have you ever noticed your plants might be covered in bugs, or they're drooping yellow leaves, or maybe you have those ugly brown spots? And maybe sometimes the flavor isn't what you hoped it would be. By companion planting, you can try to maximize your yield and take less space. You're going to try to reduce disease and attract pollinators, which pollinators is going to also attract, improve your fruit set. And we want to try to eliminate harmful pesticides. Companion planting, we're trying to get more pollinators in, but again, sometimes insecticides, there's some out there that if you do spray them, it isn't harmful to the pollinators. And sometimes you kill the good bugs as you're killing the bad bugs as well. It also gives your garden a little more diversity. And I've got some charts that we're going to go through and look at and explain through what that looks like side by side. Let's see. So again, this is just an overview of what this can do potentially for your garden. And here's our charts. So if you look here, we've got it separated out in the likes and the dislikes for each one of them. When you do companion planting, you want to do your research and you want to plan and be diligent. You want to understand the likes, but also the dislikes as well. You need to be strategic about what you're planting in the space and how is it going to be beneficial to that plant? How is it going to help the health of it or improve the growth of it? There's many ingredients in cooking as well. So when we think about companion planting, think about cooking. Now I know that sounds a little odd, but if you think about cucumbers and dill, they grow great in a garden together, but they also go well together. Like if you're doing pickles, for example. Or if you have tomato basil soup, and you have fresh spinach and tomato salad, all those are great companions too. So we really want to focus on learning about your plant and what it is important for, what grows well with it as well. So for example, if you look at your asparagus grows well with things like tomatoes, basil, parsley, but you might and also it protects against the asparagus beetle. But if you look at things like, for example, corn, you really want to grow corn in an area that has potatoes, peas, beans, cucumbers, pumpkins, squash, marigolds. It grows well together, but you might not want to plant your tomatoes right beside your corn. Those are just a few examples, but these charts are great to go through and just some examples of what to plant side by side. Now, keep in mind the nightshade family. You really don't want to plant a lot of nightshades together. So you might not want your tomatoes right beside your peppers and eggplant all together, because there are some insects that can be very attracted to them, and they can basically share all those insects. So you might want to separate them out and have them in different spots throughout the garden. So you might want to separate your tomatoes from your peppers or your eggplant and try to get those a little bit distance from each other. And we can also look at things like cucumbers. Cucumbers, they grow well with corn, but not with potatoes. If we look at onions, you can think about the cabbage. They like cabbage family, strawberries, tomatoes, lettuce, and dill. But they really don't grow that well with peas or beans. So we have to look at the likes and the dislikes of each of them. But also, one thing I didn't really think about, and Denise had brought up to me, was deep-rooted plants. So if you have a really deep-rooted plant and then you have some that are shallower, just be careful how you're planting those because it can steal the moisture away from the shallow plants. So just keep that in mind. It's not only for disease or for insects to try to help with that control, but how is the planting affecting the plant itself? So if I'm planting, a deep-rooted plant here, is there going to be enough water source available for the ones that are more shallow rooted? Something to keep in mind. And you don't want to forget that overall, whenever you're planting, make sure you have enough space. Even if you have a great companion garden, you have to have plenty of room. If you have plenty of room, it's going to allow for those leaves to dry, and you're going to have less likely chance of having diseases, because sometimes those leaves get wet, and if they stay wet, you can have the disease stay on there, and basically it creates a disease. It can. So have plenty of room available for your plants, and just keep in mind that overall they're going to grow, right? It's really easy to go through and plant your entire garden, and it looks really beautiful in the beginning. And you have, use all the space that you can use, and you want to be most productive, but keep in mind that they are going to grow, and you have to have space for growth. If you have your plants too close together, again, it gets into that disease pressure, but also, if that plant is under stress, there's a likely chance that if the plant's under stress, you might have the insects attracted to them as well, because, hey, this plant isn't looking that good. Those insects might pick up on that and be attracted to that plant. So here's a few more charts, just some different things, likes and dislikes. So spinach really likes to be planted near strawberries. The big things that you want to focus on as well is definitely the dislikes. For example, you don't want to have your potatoes planted near your tomatoes, pumpkins, melons, or cucumbers. And then think about also companion planting, as in, okay, not only is it what it's going to do for insects and disease and for water, but you have to think about the size of the plant and how it's going to grow. So for example, you don't want tall plants to be right over your watermelons. Watermelons are low growing, and they need as much sun as they can get. So you don't really want to plant your corn right beside your watermelons, because you're not going to have enough, you might not have enough sunlight there as well. So just keep in mind also the height of each of them. A lot of times we want our garden to be in as much sun as possible, but if you have some shading going on because you have corn growing in a certain spot, just keep that in mind, that the area and how it's going to be placed as well. And this is just some examples of the herbs. So the herbs, we can look at how they can help. Now, herbs are great thing that you can plant, and there's a lot of benefits with herbs. So if you think about like insects, they can help with the insects and disease. For example, basil helps overcome some insects, but also catnip can contain insect repellent oil. And again, it's not a like a miracle one time, this is going to be everything for you and it's going to take care of it, but it's small things that can help in your garden. And if you think about like insect repellent oils, even catnip itself, planting it near somewhere, if you have an outdoor area that you like to be in, that can help. Um, and also dill, if you think about dill and what you can plant with it, it improves the growth of cabbage. And if you lightly sow with lettuce and onions and cucumbers as well. Garlic is a big one. Garlic can be very effective for many insects. It can help with some types of diseases, just trying to keep those out. And also things like the stone fruits, it can help with those as well. So just keep in mind what you are planting and what benefits there can be with what you plant beside of it, and also the dislikes. But also herbs can help with things like repelling ticks. I know ticks are horrible this year. Lavender can help with this. Lavender can also help with repelling moths. So know what it can help repel against, and that can help you within your garden. So if you know, for example, you have a lot of cabbage loopers, those guys are horrible, and you might want to plant thyme beside of it, and that can help try to deter the cabbage loopers. Now, it's not going to be, hey, I'm going to plant thyme and there's going to be no cabbage loopers on them. It just can help in a way, okay? So you're still going to have to go out in your garden. You're still going to have to look for diseases. You're still going to have to look for insects. So if you think about like the insect portion, if you have like a jar and you're wanting to stay and not spray as many insecticides, you can take a jar and just put some soapy water in it, go out and pick those insects off. Now, I know some people, it might not be as realistic because you have a huge garden, but if you have a smaller garden and you can go out there, you can actually pick which insects you want to keep and not, right? So if you are spraying and you're like, hey, I really, it's hard, some things kill everything, but if you go out with a jar and you can say, hey, I need to get this beetle off, you can pick it off, put it in your jar, but then you can keep the good things like the ladybugs or praying mantis, things like that, to keep in mind as well. And this is just another one for insect control that can help with the plants as well, and it can help you as well, like again, like the ticks. I know those are horrible this year, but the pests and what they don't like and what they can, how these plants can help overall. I've always just heard like planting marigolds consistently, but I think that these charts really bring in some different plants that you could potentially put in that are going to help with your garden. And this is just a picture of Denise's garden, and really I wish you all could see her incredible farm. She has monarchs. She releases those every year. I think she releases around 1,000, and she'll talk about that actually next week. But it's really incredible what her area looks like. But she uses companion planting a lot. She doesn't like to use pretty well any insecticides at all, because she does have an apiary, and also she has a lot of monarchs that she takes care of and releases back. So overall, it can be a little bit overwhelming, like what should I plant with each thing? But I think if you have some grid paper or something, you can line out and say, hey, this is what I'm wanting to plant. What can be planted where? So these are just raised beds. And like you're going to have the main one would be, for example, green beans. If you look at there's one in here, it says green beans, and you can plant marigolds with green beans. It works well. And you might be that, you plant a few green beans, and then in the center, you plant a few marigolds, and you kind of plant them throughout, not necessarily maybe all around the edge. But also think about what else could come into your garden. For example, let me find this, see. I know we have a lot of problems with deer, especially in our area. And there are some that are more deer resistant. So let me go back just a second. Okay, the ones with the asterisks are actually more deer resistant. So if you're having problems with deer eating an area, think about your companion planting in that aspect of it as well. So lavender can help with ticks. It can help repel moths, but also it can help with repelling deer. And mint is something I know all of our master gardeners are not big fans of it because it can take over very fast, but it can help repel deer as well. So just think about that aspect of it. But also, I have another chart on here. Let me get to it. We have another one here, and up here toward the top, it has corn. And all around the edges, it has sunflowers. And why would we want to plant the sunflowers near the corn? So the sunflowers are actually all the way around the edge, and then the corn's in the middle. And the reason for that is for deer. She's got a lot of deer problems. She lives right near the Ohio River, and it becomes an issue. So the deer do not like prickly types of things. So if the sunflowers are out, they kind of get bigger. The deer don't want to walk through them. They don't like that prickly part of the plant, and it protects it more of the corn for them as well. So this is just another example of how flowers are and companion planting and how you can overall plant throughout. And it can be a process. It doesn't have to be something that you do, hey, this year I'm going to do everything at once. It can be a plan. It can be a 5-year plan. It could be a 3-year plan. Just don't make it overwhelming. Just maybe do a couple things each year to try to help improve. And you can see what works well for you, and maybe something that maybe doesn't, and you want to try something new out instead. But this is just examples of what it looks like throughout. And, there are some that are definitely perennials, and we can keep perennials. We don't have to move those around, but there are some good perennials as well that work well. And this is just examples of her garden and how things overall, they work well together with companion planting. And it's more work, I would say, overall. But probably more rewarding because you know that you're able to help your plants, and you might not necessarily have to go out and spray or have to go out and pick as many beetles because you're able to help those plants thrive better. So some suggested readings. This is just personal. If you look at, there's a couple of different books that Denise really liked to focus on. It's Carrots Love Tomatoes and Roses Love Garlic. Those are just suggested readings. So if you're wanting to have more information, you might want to check those books out and just dig in and do some reading to see what is going to work well for you in your area, and give it a try.